Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Ignition Time. The Republican Party wants you, yes, you, my fellow Americans, to pay for a bigger, bolder fourth stimulus package. Now, I'm not talking about a fourth stimulus check. I'm talking about an infrastructure package, which some Democrats are trying to include a fourth stimulus check in, but it's too early to talk about a fourth stimulus check. I'm talking about an infrastructure package that is going to create more jobs, that's going to include more benefits, and that's going to include more tax rebates, essentially stimulus for American families. Welcome to this episode of Ignition Time. This channel, the Ignition Time channel, is about the country, the economy, as well as our money. This right here is a little bit of information about me. You'll learn more about who I am, what my journey has been like, and why you should listen to me. Let's just jump right in. I'll actually show you some interesting comments from the Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, who basically said that rich people should not pay for a massive infrastructure package, but people who use the infrastructure, people who drive over the roads and bridges, people like you and me should pay for the additional infrastructure. And they are ready, they meaning the Republicans are ready to do more on infrastructure, potentially up to $800 billion. So folks, before I get to that segment, let's show you this headline on your screen from Politico. The Republicans way going bigger on infrastructure. The internal Republican debate over how high to go is actually intensifying because President Biden is scheduled to meet with the big four congressional leaders. Here's an important quote from Shelley Moore Capito, the Republican senator from West Virginia, which by the way is the same state from which we have the conservative Democrat Joe Manchin. She said, the first offer is meant to be countered, so I would imagine that none of these figures are solid. And Shelley Moore Capito is heading the negotiations with the White House from the Republican side when it comes to the infrastructure package. In fact, Senator Rob Portman, the well-known Republican from Ohio, when he was specifically asked about the negotiations that are taking place between the Republicans and the White House, he said this, and I quote, "Yeah, it's a negotiation." So what do the Republicans want? The Republicans want to pay for any new infrastructure bill with new user-generated fees rather than deficit spending. In other words, they want to pay for this infrastructure by raising new revenue instead of driving the country deeper and deeper into debt. According to Senator Roger Wicker, who's a Republican from Mississippi, he said this, there will not be one Republican vote for the package if it's going to create more deficit spending, if it's going to lead to higher corporate income taxes. He said it's a give and take. Yes, that's what Wicker said. And he cautioned that for Republicans, I quote, "I don't think it's really realistic to go up that much higher." Senator Debbie Fisher, who's a Republican from Nebraska, said that while Republicans were open to more infrastructure spending, it would require a different approach from the White House. In other words, they want users who use the infrastructure, who use the roads and bridges to essentially pay user-generated fees, which would then be used to fund the infrastructure instead of raising corporate income taxes, instead of raising taxes on the rich, and instead of essentially creating more deficit spending, creating more debt for the federal government. That is what the Republicans want. Here's a direct quote from the senator, Senator Fisher. "I would hope the administration is going to pare their proposal way back and really start looking at what core infrastructure is." One of the big areas of contention between the Republicans and the Democrats is the definition of infrastructure. The Democrats have expanded the definition of infrastructure to include human infrastructure and money for caregivers and other aspects of our population. But Republicans want to focus on core infrastructure, roads, bridges, airports, railroads, broadband internet. So there's fundamentally a difference in opinion about the definition of infrastructure between both sides. In the meantime, Democrats are definitely firing back. Here's a quote from Senator Elizabeth Warren, who's a Democrat from Massachusetts, and I quote, "I want to know what Mitch McConnell plans to cut. This is not a moment to say we'll repair half our roads, we'll provide childcare for half the mothers who want to go back to work, we'll provide broadband for half the country that still doesn't have it. This is the time to say we're going to make an investment in all of us." Let me know whether you agree or disagree with the comments from Senator Elizabeth Warren, the Democrat from Massachusetts, in the comment section below. On the other hand, we have an interesting comment from Senator Mitt Romney, the Republican from Utah. I'm quoting him. "We could certainly reach an agreement on physical infrastructure." I referred to it as core infrastructure earlier. He said some of the other things the administration wants to do, which is under the banner of infrastructure more broadly, is going to have to be considered on a partisan basis. Basically, he's saying both sides need to cooperate on things that are not related to core infrastructure. He said, I just don't think we're going to go along with hundreds of billions of dollars in childcare and the like. Interesting comments from the Republican Mitt Romney from Utah. And speaking of Republicans, here's a comment from Senator Mike Braun, who's a Republican from Indiana. He said he was not necessarily open to increasing the Republican offer. So in other words, he's saying, hey, I don't think we should spend more money. And Senator Joni Ernst, who's a Republican from Iowa, she actually is part of the leadership team, said that she does not love the idea of spending more, but she said, I do think there's room for negotiation. So as we explore what different members of the Republican Party are saying, and it's very clear where the Democrats stand, let's take a look at a very interesting comment directly from the Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, who basically is open to more infrastructure spending but wants you to pay for it. Folks, we are talking about a bigger, bolder stimulus plan, which is fundamentally going to be an infrastructure plan. But Mitch McConnell wants you to pay for it. He pretty much said so. In a very interesting clip, and I'm about to show you that clip right now, the Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell said, and I quote, the best way to pay for infrastructure is with the people who use it, not revisiting the tax bills. So what Mitch McConnell is saying is, hey, do not raise taxes on the rich and the ultra wealthy. Instead, people who use the roads, people who use the bridges, people who travel by train, people who use the airports, they should be paying more. There should be a user-generated fee for the next massive infrastructure package. So there are two plays at work here politically. One is the definition of infrastructure. Number two is who pays for it. Once again, the two sides are arguing about the definition of infrastructure. And number two, they are arguing about who pays for it. Let's take a look at this interesting segment from the Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell. Let's roll the tape.
I think they'll see if they can pass this thing by getting everybody in line. If they can't, then we're open to talk about infrastructure and how to pay for it. And the way to pay for infrastructure is through the gas tax that already exists, and whatever the gap between that and what we're willing to spend here needs to be credibly paid for. And the best way to pay for infrastructure is with the people who use it, not revisiting the tax bill in a way that creates additional problems for the economy, which is going to already have, based on what we've already done, two big problems: inflation and the difficulty of getting people back to work.
And folks, the Senate Minority Leader is not done. He's criticizing the White House's approach, which essentially involves a broader definition of infrastructure. In fact, he went so far as to call it a bait and switch, saying that the White House wants something that is much bigger than traditional infrastructure, than core infrastructure, while revealing a very important hint about the size of the infrastructure package. He said, I quote, the proper price tag for infrastructure is $600 to $800 billion. The White House is trying a bait and switch much bigger. Folks, before I show you the clip, think about this. The Republicans are willing to go higher on infrastructure while making sure that the rich don't pay for it. That's number one. Number two, the Republicans are willing to go higher on infrastructure at the same time criticizing the White House's philosophy, calling it a bait and switch, saying that what they want is significantly bigger. The Republicans want to go higher on infrastructure provided you pay for it. That is fundamentally what is going on. Let's roll the tape here and check out another important segment from the Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell. Let's watch.
The proper price tag for what most of us think of as infrastructure is about $600 to $800 billion, which Shelley Moore Capito of my conference has put together and recommended as a bill that's related to the subject. What we've got here, however, is what could best be described as a bait and switch, called infrastructure, but much bigger, with a whole laundry list of other things, plus completely revisiting the 2017 tax bill.
So the Republican Party wants you to pay for a bigger, bolder, fourth stimulus package. Let me know what you think of this video. Please click the like button. Please subscribe. Please enable notifications. I help you understand what's going on in the unbelievable world of Washington, D.C. Think of this as another episode of the D.C. Comedy Hour. Yes, folks, an episode of the D.C. Comedy Hour where the Republicans want you to pay for a bigger, bolder fourth stimulus package. Thank you so much for watching. Please click the like button. Please subscribe. Please enable notifications. I really appreciate you watching. How you can support our channel is by simply clicking the like button, by clicking subscribe and enabling notifications. I want you to know I greatly appreciate you. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next episode of Ignition Time. Take care. Bye.